Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Nice to see you all. I'm Cathy Hailey, Vice President of the Northern Region of the Poetry Society of Virginia. And here we have Angela Dribben, Vice President of the Western Region. Angie and I have been celebrating PSV's centennial year with a series of monthly readings called Virginia Voices. I can't believe that it's almost the end of that year, but here we are. The intention is to remember why we came together in PSV in the first place, to share how we are approaching poetry as individuals, and to connect with our community statewide. Episodes featuring 2 PSV members are held on Zoom at 5:30 p.m. on the second Wednesday of each month. And we ask the same 3 questions each time and ask the poets to read 3 poems. So I'm going to start today by introducing Angie Clevinger, and after that, Aidan Daniel. But we'll start with Angie Clevinger, and I'll give you her bio. Angela, formerly Angela V. Clevinger, is a reading specialist at Pulaski County High School, located in the beautiful southwestern Virginia mountains. Angela began her writing career for various educational journals and newspapers advocating on behalf of students, teachers, and public education. Recently, she has begun her journey into creative writing with a focus on poetry. Her work has appeared in the Anthology of Appalachian Writers, Floyd County Moonshine, Poetry Society of Virginia, and Artemis. Finishing Line Press has just released her poetry collection, The Lady of the Lake Had Bouffant Hair, in late March 2023. Angie, would you start us off with a poem?
Yes, I will. I'm going to do Before I Was Born. This starts the collection of that book you just mentioned, The Lady of the Lake Has Bouffant Hair.
By the way, my copy is not here yet, just letting you know.
I am so sorry. I am hearing that. I have to get on to them. Before I was born. Before I was born, I hopscotched on the twangy notes of a banjo. Before my soul found a body, I floated atop streams of corn liquor down the esophageal slide of a flat-footing drunkard, dancing to foggy mountain breakdown. Before I was knitted in bone and sinew, I was the smoke swirling around bouffant bleached heads. The only way you'd have known I was in your midst is if you looked at the coffee cups and discarded cigarette butts, stained by crimsons and pinks, tattooed by mountain women's painted lips. In the before time, when I was asked where I wanted to be planted, I chose the brightest bottled blonde with the highest hair and the reddest lips for my mama. Smoky me clung to mama's polyester dress, danced at her amply cleavaged breast, and kissed her red-stained cigarette-sucking lips. Choose a daddy, I was told. So I searched for the man who drank amber rivers of liquid corn. His sweet vapor breath drew me near, his laughter a sweet poison. Before I floated in womb waters, I chose them, 'cause I can't live without smoke, corn liquor, and the twang of a banjo.
Wow. Such an amazing poem. So many great details. And some difficulties too, right?
I always like a challenge.
Okay. So I'm not sure if this poem is representative, but I feel like at least some elements in this poem are representative of your approach to poetry. Can you go ahead and start us out with a little explanation of how you approach poetry, what your personal style is?
Yes, I start out a lot with questioning things. I'm not a person who wallows around a lot in self-pity, but when I find myself about to get there in the river of self-pity, I ask why? Why is this like this? And so I dig deep into that question of why are things the way they are. I've read a lot of books about all kinds of different things. One of them is about reincarnation and choosing your path, to give you an idea about that one. And you're there and it's time to be reassigned. And I just thought, I watched that Hoover Blue Highway with the kids when I first had my children. It's a Dr. Seuss book, and it talks about picking your parents. And that's what started. What if I chose this? Because there was a lot of trauma and stuff to deal with in my childhood. And I thought, what if I knew everything I knew then, not cognizant of it now, and I chose that path anyway? And that, when I looked at it that way, instead of it looking like or feeling like a woe is me, this is awful, I've got this awful home life, I thought of, wow, look at the opportunity of everything I got to learn. And it's hard to do that from a dark place. That happens after counseling. But I really start with a what if question when I begin to write. It's what if this, what if that house could talk? What if that tractor could talk? What if I chose the life I have, but I'm not cognizant of it now? Despite, and there's some things that are so rich in our lives that we would choose, even if they're the most horrific things we've ever gone through, just because we're all right with who we are now. We're okay. And having not gone through it would change us to the point that we'd be unrecognizable. So I'm dealing with a lot of those kinds of issues when I write.
I think that's really good advice for all of us, to ask that kind of question and see where the answers are. That's really great advice, for ourselves as people, but also
Yeah.
for ourselves as poets. Thank you. All right, I'm going to introduce Aidan now, and then follow with the same poem and question. Aidan Daniel, she, her, is a writer. I'm having a little trouble with my screen. Hang on one second, you all. Like it's locked up for a second. Okay. Aidan Daniel, she, her, is a writer, visual artist, and teacher from Virginia. She received her MFA from Randolph College, where she was the assistant managing editor for Revolut Literary Magazine. Her work can be found in Shenandoah, Booth, and the many scattered papers on her desk. A woman after my own heart. Aidan will be a presenter at the May Centennial Festival in Richmond, hoping that some of the details about that will be up on the website soon. And I just learned that Aidan is teaching a class for Randolph College.
It's all very new, so you were finding out about it in a perfectly timely fashion.
Good. Well, would you start us out with a poem, and then you can go right into your approach to poetry?
Absolutely. So this is a poem from my own collection, yet to be published collection, and it is titled Virginia Opossum Rages. She is unhopeful, hurt, quickly fading, found on the roadside, heaving so softly. Do not remember me like this. Remember each fine hair of all my promise, when possibility torrented around me. Remember me fast enough to fight my clouded eyes, when no one could get close enough, so all they called me was animal, a specter, a vision in white. Remember the tonic of my million teeth grinding to anti-venom any viper threatening me. Remember nothing of me now. loose and ungathered, ash after a wildfire. Rather me with my dozen beloveds, cargo of babies strung over my bones. Remember my womb, another dimension, my pouch, a practical bullseye of life-giving. Remember anything, moon of my ear, apple of my toes. Even better, remember, I just play at death. Remember how I make it a joke.
Wow. I happen to have a fondness for possums, so I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much.
Of course. We're good company for each other. Both very much fans of possums and very cluttered.
All right. So is this a poem that is an example of your, usual approach or? Okay.
Yeah. I started doing persona poetry a couple years ago and just haven't stopped since then. I am really kind of carried along in poetry by considering kind of like what you said, Angela, the what if. And I'm very inspired by animals and kind of stepping into the persona of an animal. So this poem came to be in a very typical fashion for me. I was doing research. I was listening to a podcast about possums called Ologies, which I recommend to anyone who will listen to me. And it gave so many interesting details about this creature that I knew nothing about. I only knew my association with them was roadkill. And then as you learn about them, I couldn't help but think like, well, this incredible being is only ever seen at the end of its life. And, one of my favorite poetic tools is empathy. And so I thought how distraught I would be if I were only ever defined by the end of my life, which does happen to many people. And if I were a possum, or if I could speak in a typical possum voice, then what would I want to say to prove to people that I'm more than just a carcass, honestly. So it's very standard for me to try and take these small voices and commiserate with them, to try and give them a little bit of power. I also find poetry to be, it's so distilled into these high moments and these very intense feelings. And so it's a place for me to put my intense feelings as well. It's very much a coping mechanism to process just, intellectual curiosities, but also my emotional extremes, having to just get through life by means of poetry is something that's very standard for me.
And I'm just curious, are more of your personas realistic personas as opposed to more fantastical approaches, or?
I would say most of them are more fantastical. I have a lot of like small and pest creatures in my manuscript, like a spider and a louse parasite, and oftentimes like a deer. I did throw in a persona at the very last minute into my book that was finally like my persona. So mostly it's fantastical, but every once in a while there's
But with realistic creatures, even if the speaking is a fantasizing kind of idea.
To suspend your disbelief a little bit.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you. Well, Aidan, while I've got you, let me just go ahead and ask you to say what prompted you to join the Poetry Society of Virginia. And it's recent, right?
It is. This is actually my first, maybe my second Poetry Society event. What prompted me is Angie, Dribben. She's kind of been holding my hand, bringing me into the Poetry Society, but she and I are both part of Randolph's MFA program, and I got to meet her and find out what a lovely creature she is. But yes, she's so great. But I'm very new to the Poetry Society, and I'm very I'm very excited to be joining. I also wanted to join to just be more connected to my community. Virginia is my best home that I've had. I've lived a lot of places, but I've loved Virginia the most. And upon graduating, I kind of promised myself that I would make a concerted effort to get out there and connect with people and keep talking about poetry. So I'm excited to be doing that in this space, and then in May in Richmond. Yeah, it's from the good friendship of Angie that I've
Go ahead and say something about your presentation briefly, just so that people know what you're doing there.
Absolutely. So that will be sometime on May the 4th. So I believe that's a Thursday. I am doing a talk with a little bit of workshop time at the end called Crawling into the Shell. And it's a look at hermit crab forms. It's an extended version of what my graduate talk was. I graduated this past June from Randolph College. And it was a truncated talk, and Angie knows this because she's had to do the same thing. We really have to pack a lot of information there. But in Richmond in a few weeks, I will get to really unpack this visual poetic form that also works for prose forms, if there's anyone who dabbles in both like I do. But it's really an innovative form that I'll be talking about. You kind of see it everywhere, but it's putting a name and practicality to a form that I would see all the time that was just really striking to me.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And on that same day, Ray Baroa will be the keynote speaker. He comes from George Mason University, and I think he will be. I've just talked to him on the phone recently, and I just told Angie I felt like I knew him right away. So I think it'll be a great day Thursday, even if we do start a little bit later. That's the first day of the festival, so I hope you all will come. Angie, how about you? What and when were you prompted to join the Poetry Society of Virginia?
You're speaking with me?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you called Angela Angie. That's okay. I got started because I wanted to enter some poems, and then I realized that it was a platform to have or to give Appalachian voices a voice at a state level. And I have to also say, with Angela Dribben helping and reaching out, there's been a lot more programs and a lot more things that we can participate in because she has gone above and beyond to bring in programs and to get us involved. So that's my main reason for being a member. I am an Appalachian writer. It's so central to who I am and in my voice and the kind of poems that I write, because that's the life I've lived here in this region. So I also give appreciation to Angela Dribben. We should have a support. We should have a club, like a fan club, the Angela Dribben Club.
I think we already do. Okay. So Angie, why don't you stick with me here with your second poem?
Okay. Well, it seems like that's a good segue to this next poem. Speaking of Appalachian writing, sometimes I like to think about and share old wives' tales and notions. So one of the poems I've written is Shriveled Cucumbers. And if anybody has any questions about this after I read it, for those of you who have not heard this old wives' tale, I'll be glad to answer as best I can. Shriveled Cucumbers. Don't go in that cucumber patch in your condition. You'll kill 'em, Granny shouted. Her rolled bun shook atop her head as she wobbled out towards me on her one good leg, her straight artificial leg adding a hop to her gait. Fine with me, I thought, less work. I rolled my eyes. Granny had funny notions. It's all an old wife's tale, I mumbled, shaking my head. She doesn't even shave her pits, I silently judged. God put hair on you for a reason. I figure I ain't got no business of shaving it off, she shared once. Later that night, me and the neighborhood girls played tag. The cool, damp floor of Granny's garden squished between my toes. I curled my feet fingers in the soft work soil. I could smell the dirt as well as the distinctive iron shedding of my womanhood. While hopping through the short jungle of plants, avoiding the grabbing hands of my friends, I spotted the plump green sausages erect on the vine. I laughed at our game, feeling the bulky pad shift in my bloomers with each movement required, Granny's warning from earlier echoing in my mind. School started in August, and I waited outside for the bus with Granny and Pa on their porch. "You gonna can that bushel of cucumbers you picked yesterday?" asked Pa. "No, they're bad. They're squishy. There ain't gonna be no pickles this year."
Wonderful. The voices are amazing.
I can hear them talking in my head, and that helps write a lot of it down. Um, I am playing with voice and tone and things like that. And I have heard and take it as a compliment as well as a challenge to work on my word choice and my how I do my writing of my poems. That hearing me read a poem that I've written is better than reading a poem I've written, and I think that's because in my head I know those people. I want you to know them too. So I'm continuing to work on that imagery, but that one works really well with my reading voice.
Absolutely. It seems really natural. And
It is.
did anybody have questions about the cucumber tale? Since you brought that up.
I'll tell you, I believe still it's an old wives' tale, but I can honestly tell you that those cucumbers did not come in that year. And it made me wonder if there was something to it.
Yeah.
So,
Hard not to question when it seems to actually happen.
yes, that's true.
All right. Aidan, would you like to read your second poem?
Yes, I forgot to give you a heads up ahead of time. I have two shorter ones that I can read together in this time, if that's all right with you all. You can
Mhm.
tell me now. I'd also love to share my screen if that's possible.
Yeah.
Okay, lovely.
Um,
Sorry to put you on the spot for screen sharing.
it should work. Angie, we've got
It
it
should
set
be
up
ready.
to work.
Yeah, it should be ready.
All right, I should-
No problem.
There we go. All right. So I have two shortish ones I'll be reading for us. This is Fox Snare. No, you have bitten and vanished from hands in midair, so this can't be it. No, 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 it's too obvious, easy, too small. There is a way out. This isn't real. You will be your own rescue any second. Whatever you've done to fall into this trap, existing as a fool with your nose in the air, you will never make that mistake again. What was the point of not going home? You've heard all the stories, but there will be a way out, something practical, maybe even miraculous. This can't be happening, what's happening. You are too keen and quick and wildly full like blackberries, like eggs to catch in some dumb and choking grasp. But you've heard this song, always suspected you might sing it too, played through the pace of your days, just what it would feel like to be strung up on such fear, how each shaking breath would sound. Well, here is your answer. Does it compare to all you awaited, or so much worse? Run, run, sly girl, go to bed with dirty feet. In the final ditch of effort, crack your teeth, claw from your skin, and blink your last comfort that none of it was owed to you, that each breath you reached for and kept was plunder. And my second poem in this time is called Wolves Sound Back. Each month, near an enclosure at the Lincoln Park Zoo, Chicago's civil defense tests its emergency alert sirens. The sirens were installed and kept to warn of air raids, nuclear attack, natural disasters, or new miscellaneous danger. foe or brother. Over and over we hear you, not knowing who you are, bludgeon or bloodline. Should your foam blood open shouts of joy or concern? Who lost you? Was it us? How? How could we, wondering who you wander from, if ours echolocate yonder fonder brother? Find us, tow your bones over to fold your winnowing coat in the ocean of our warmth. Although, if you're not ours, roam and go away. You won't be our body, not a mouth or solace, just one woeful sound. Hollow, fallow, follower, faulted, open, broken. How do you call over and over? How have we never known who you are? How can a sound make us feel so alone, alone, lone, lone?
Wow, I'm fascinated by these really unique approaches, and I wonder if you can just talk briefly about your development in that area.
Yeah, so I just find it the most stimulating way to work. I kind of naturally gravitated to more visual representations of poetry. Um, I it's funny, in the time since I've graduated, you know, I kind of have taken a break from poetry, and I've had to make myself get back into this thing that I love. And it's so funny that I have to discover over and over again, like, oh, I need form. Form is the thing that makes me excited. So whether that be like traditional forms like pantoums or sestinas, or just trying to consider the concrete form, like particularly in the wolf poem, I was so, when I did this research and heard about these wolves harmonizing with this air raid signal, I was I had the image in mind of sound traveling up to like meet this alternate sound. So in a way, it's something that I can't avoid because I'm a very visual person. But I'm trying to use it to my own advantage as often as possible to try and communicate something more than I could have just communicated with words.
Well, I loved it. Both the going up and the circles. Very nice. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay. So so Aidan, let's see. I guess we're at the next question here. And we talked about, why you joined PSV. And even if you haven't had a lot of time, and I know you have some plans of expanding your involvement, hopefully in the future. And so what are some of the things that just in general you'd like to see from PSV, and also some things that maybe you're thinking individually about, trying to do yourself, should you become the Western Region VP?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, joining the PSV, being nominated for Western VP is fortuitous, because the thing that I've been struck by, especially in my town, I'm from Lynchburg, is I would love to see more educational opportunities. In my town, we have a few open mics, some like co-writing nights, but they're very scattered. There's not a whole lot of poetry programming in Lynchburg, especially not for adults, and not educational unless it's attached to a university system. Mm-hmm. So I was very fortunate and privileged that I got to attend an MFA, and I really, really love that experience. But for people who don't have that same privilege as I do, I know there are people who are looking to express themselves in poetry, but I think there are just as many people who are really, like I was, hungry to learn about poetry and to find out, what an image is and what a form is, and to learn about assonance and consonance and dissonance. And that is the thing that's really just been weighing on my mind for about a year now in my town, is how deeply I would like workshops and lectures and classes to be started by me or someone else, or me with someone else.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. I absolutely agree. There are many people out there looking for that without wanting to spend the amount of money that it takes for the MFA program.
Absolutely.
Angie, how about you?
Yes. I love everything that she said. As a teacher, one of the resources I would like, and also as a writer, would be able to have something. We have a thing with our schools, but I'll just be honest, it's professional development that nobody wants to do, where there's a website and you go to it and you might watch a hour-long video on something, and it's not anything applicable to what I do. It would be really nice if, like, you could go on Poetry Society of Virginia and put in a membership number, and or some way, log in, or some way identify yourself and be able to, pick up 2 30-minute, because they won't let you do anything less than an hour or 2 hours for PD, but to be able to complete those, and at the end of it to have a little certificate that prints out. I can get 90 points as a public school teacher if I present something, which makes that something that teachers would like to do. English teachers would like to be able to say, yes, I did this presentation on some kind of writing. And that could get our high school students involved. It could, even our middle school, even if we host a couple of contests for, maybe middle school and high school, and they get to have something published in the Poetry Society book. But to be able to go and get to become a member, and also be able to provide professional development as an educator, but to also receive professional development as an educator. I hold 2 masters, so it's like, I'd have some friends, not that I would do this, that take cake baking or something like off the wall too. But I would really, as a person who does remediation in English and writing, and I also work with students who have a great deal of trauma themselves, and poetry could be a way for them to deal and find their voice and to find some power. So I look at organizations like the Poetry Society of Virginia as ways to get professional development for educators, and a place where educators can have a forum to present or to teach, so that they can, even on that other end, get even more professional development points. So I could see what Aidan's saying, working and then taking it even a step further to make sure that we build community outside of Poetry Society of Virginia.
So I'm really glad you brought that up today, because when we have the every 2 years in the Company of Laureates gathering in Prince William County, we always provide recertification hours, just like a sheet of paper giving permission for you to get hours from your county. I see no reason why we can't do that for the Centennial Festival. And that's, 4 days of activity. So, depending on what you attend, you could rack up some points that way. And I'm really excited about it, all the different presenters that we have, the different topics that they're addressing. And I've already posted some of this on Facebook, but I wanted to tell you to go to the website today, but there's still just a general statement on the website right now. But the rest of it is supposed to be up very soon, and I hope you all will look. And there's a registration opportunity there too, which isn't binding, but it will help us to determine which presenters to place in, bigger or smaller rooms, depending on what the interest looks like. So I really encourage you all to try to find your way. And I know for you in the West that Richmond is not close, but maybe you can find a way to do some carpooling or a hotel room sharing.
While these presentations are already going on, even if you hold the Zoom and you can record the presentation, later they could be uploaded and be some way just for members, and there could be a library. And there, I know that teachers would pay to become a member of the Poetry Society of Virginia, especially if it helped them get professional development points that cost quite a bit to get if you take a class, at a university to get your recertification. Just something to think about.
Yeah, I'm gonna look into that. We could, have any of the presentations recorded or zoomed or live streamed or anything. So far, there isn't someone taking up that cause, and we really need somebody that's in Richmond to work on that. So I'll see what I can bring up on our Sunday centennial meeting. But I like your ideas for sure. Okay. Angie, I'm just going to throw in, did you want to add anything there before I ask for more poetry?
I don't have anything to add. It's just that, and I hate, we're using Zoom, and I have to say, honestly, I love to like reach out and touch or look at or be around people. But, the one thing that COVID kind of gave us is, I don't know about you, but I'm more technologically savvy than I was before COVID. I was brought into the technological world kicking and screaming. I am happy that this forum of Zoom and other things are helping us share stories. Even if the story is not about a real person, when you share poetry, you share a bit of your soul, I think, with others. And, we're in a world where we are glued to our phones all the time, and we have difficulty communicating with each other. And I think some people's social anxiety's even gotten worse. I'm just glad that we have a way to reach out across the miles and do that. So
agreed. Aidan, anything to add before we go on to the next poem?
I think Angela said it all. I'm all good.
Okay. Angela Dribben, how about you? Any comments to?
Yeah, but I put it in the chat because I think this is great. And we actually have been doing PDs that the teachers do want to attend. I've heard how terrible they are, but we got great evals. And for poetry and visual poetry, and we've been doing them in partnership with the VCA. And there's a museum in Martinsville that we've been working with. And so those teachers from Henry County and City of Martinsville have been doing it. And then they've also been sending us into classrooms. And so there's a lot of grant money for that. And so I'll introduce Aidan and Casey at the VCA, and Angie, if you, I know you have a lot, but if you want to be on that email, they want to come to the West.
yeah, I'd like to be on
Okay.
the email. I don't know if I can get out there, but
Yeah, but
because that'll be right in SOL testing season. We all know that's the best way to teach children. Sorry,
but I'll make that
I didn't
introduction
say that out loud.
and see if y'all can get that started or keep that going deeper into the West.
So I'm just going to take a moment to respond to Catherine Fletcher, just to say that the registration has been ready to go. It should be up on the website like any minute. If it's not up by Sunday's centennial meeting, then we will do whatever we need to get it on there. And then if you are planning to go, please, fill it out as soon as you can so that we can find out, what the interest is for different sessions. I'm not sure why it takes you to the contest winners. That doesn't make sense, but hopefully that will get fixed. And I'm going to ask you to read the next poem. And in case you have more than one that, isn't, extreme, we might have time for that. Don't you think, Angela? It's looking like we have enough. Okay. All right. So I'm lost track. Who wants to go first? All right, Angie Clevinger, you're on.
Okay, I'm going to do two, and then I'll be done. But this one is called Singing Granny, and talking about that story being handed down through generations. I used to sing ballads in college for free coffee, and I learned all those ballads from my granny, who was my next door neighbor, and my father sang quite a bit of them. Then I went to high school and become part of this singing group that also sang them. So this one's about my singing granny. My one-legged granny hobbled and hopped between rows of bend-overs and runners laced up corn stalks. I was bent over picking beans when Granny nudged me forward, her plastic leg pushing me where the sun don't shine, face first into the fragrant plants bruised by the fresh plucking. A mischievous, impish laugh escaped her snuff-filled mouth. Contagious, my own laugh slipping through my pursed lips. I couldn't resist. It was a clear target, she giggled as she went hobble hop, jauntily down the rows. Barbara Allen, Granny sings as we work in the garden, weaving the story as she winds the vine up the cornstalk. Barb Allen could have been my neighbor, picking her own beans. Sweet Bill, just a boy wishing to court her. Each could have had a granny who sang magic stories and danced between rows of beans and corn.
Wow.
And then, then my last one's called Granny's Baptismal Tub. I sat among a kaleidoscope of soap shards floating atop skittered water. Granny had made me pre-wash in the sink. Shit permeated from the washroom, wafting from my jeans and panties. Dad's drunk friend had been at the house. Dad and he drinking, the dragons in the basement, me dancing, dreaming star-searched dreams. Venomous mad dog breath saturated the basement. Dad's friend asked me to sit on his lap. Dad was there. Surely it was innocent. But that dad dragon was nearly passed out in drunken indolence. Dad was the red dragon, blood vessels making angry tributaries on his blushed nose. His friend was the blue dragon, driving a vintage blue Chevelle, a car admired and well known in town. Blue dragon's hands glided up innocent thighs toward virginal fortunes. All dragons seek treasure. Even at 11, I knew the blue dragon was moving up a private road, ignoring the no trespassing sign. I twisted and turned, nimbly escaping blue talony grass, then zoomed up the stairs out the door into the street lamp night. It was then that teary yelps bubbled up from my gut, running my bare feet across dew-drenched grass, then sharp driveway rocks. My bowels dropped, exploding. I entered a river of shame. 2 years ago, my woman's blood had come. I was too old to have had this kind of accident. Hold on. I knocked on Granny's door, grasping for air. I was drowning in shit, blood, and tears. Granny answers, her long gray hair tied in rag curlers, bounced as she bobbled on her wooden leg. I am saved. I sat in the claw-footed tub. Soap shards danced atop the water, and I told Granny the tale of two dragons, the red and the blue. As she scrubbed me, she harumphed.
Such a powerful poem. And you just do such a good job of telling the details without getting too graphic. And I just think it's even more powerful that way.
And it's taken, and that's where the healing process works. That poem started out after a therapy session where they do a very in detailed, and there's a big name for it. Can't think of it off the top of my head, but you hold this machine and you watch, and it shakes a little, and you watch these, and they put you inside of that moment. and you retell that moment, you live that moment again. And you have to, as part of that therapy, you have to create a saving figure that comes in and stops this abuse from happening to you. So I had to pick a very safe person. I picked my husband. And then that memory has imprinted upon it a safety way out to show me that now I am not in, even though I can have anxiety attacks, which are much, much better, going back to those moments or thinking about them. After going through this therapy, I no longer felt in the moment of the memory that I was unsafe. After that experience, I wrote probably 10 pages, tear-filled stuff that I would probably never want to read again or show anyone. As time has gone on, I feel like once I write it in the poem, it has no power anymore in my life. So that is the most important thing. If someone talked to me about where does poetry have in your life, if I never got anything published, that poem or that writing process helps me heal. And in a world where we have so many kids in trauma, we need a place for their voices to have validity. And I really believe that poetry and writing can offer that to a child, most especially, but anyone who tries. It's not about if you're good at it. It's just like, why do you sing? You know,
Right.
I can't win a dance contest, but my soul must sing and my heart must dance, you know. So those kinds of things are the reasons I write.
That's wonderful. And Angela Dribben pointed out EMDR for that process. And Aidan, what do you have to
Yeah,
close us out tonight?
Well, for one, I wanted to say, Angela, and I mean a poem that includes defecation in it. I love the people who are brave enough to do it, because I have a big theory about, you know, shit in poems. That it's like blood in poems. It's so tender and it's so personal. And, you know, if poetry is not here to confront, thank you for sharing that with us. And kudos to you, because my PDFs aren't opening, but it is the ending part of a long poem, wherein it's formatted like a play script, talking about surgeries happening over history to a body. So previously in the poem, just for context, a surgery has been done, removing shards from a body, wooden shards, and a surgery has been done using maggots for like flesh eating therapy. So this is the final part of the poem. And as a warning, we talk about the body and surgery and wounding. Lights up and the world has changed. A time that is familiar, a room that is wide and white and expectantly serene. Everything's slick and cool, steel, linoleum. Even the light poured from watchful eyes on articulated arms is polished. In the midst of it all, the body. There are no open wounds, disobedient organs, a brain seizing with electricity must be treated with intrusion. The body winces against the light as it lays ready. A machine is breathing for it. The surgeon steps into the anticipation, uniformed in ultramarine plastic. Everything, the room, attendants, the body is ready. The body is instructed to count in reverse. The surgeon presses her hand on the bodies as it falls backward into sleep. Operations. In one, the skull is too full with fluid. A tube is inserted into the brain to snake water like a bath drain. Another, the body's fraying heart is restored by rearranging aortas like a jigsaw puzzle. In another, seizures are arrested by a motor that rattles the voice box, switched on by a magnet smaller than a palm. The body has been carted and wrangled, carried and stabbed over so much time, opened and shut more than it can recall. It has spent so much of its living on the brink of collapse. And yet, the scene clears, no vestiges of larva or shards or a scalpel, just light and the body on the table. It is awake, still smeared with blood, bruised in lilac and yellow. The body stands slow and stitches dissolve. Adhesives and staples fall from its skin. The body is small, a freckled cricket, crooked wooden fence. It is a little boy. He is left with the scars that hold him together. The longest, chest to belly button, he calls his zipper. He does not notice or care that they misaligned his rib cage. The ship in a bottle is odd, but it is whole. How you sleep? You sleep well? Yeah, I sleep well. His life stretches ahead. He asks this every day. Dreams of being recruited for the local fire department. Firemen call me be on team. I have fire dog. I fire boy. Dreams of becoming a pilot. Uses his souvenir oxygen mask as a prop. I fly high in air, fly way high. Dreams of the beautiful insurance agent on the billboard blushing. I no want kiss her. I no marry her. He plays city crashing down, hands stuffed in a sandbox. He hears a bird call clearly and the destruction pauses. Hey, it me. Hey, it say my name. He plays house. He plays king. He plays dinosaur zoo. When he plays hospital, sometimes he is the doctor, sometimes the patient. Remember my tube? Beep, beep, beep. Nurse nice to me. I brave boy. I brave? Yeah, I brave.
So powerful. Thank you for sharing that. That's incredible. Makes me want to read the rest. So you better get those things published soon. or any of that. Is any of that long poem published?
No, it's not yet, but I'm happy to send it to you if you want to read it.
Thank you.
Of course.
I also find the play form and in combination with poetry and interesting, but I do know other people who have, and it seems to be something that really works for people, especially for people who are good with voices, which interestingly enough, both of you today are really wonderful with voices, and it's even funnier to find this camaraderie when this was sort of a last minute match, and we'll hopefully be able to reschedule Ed for another time. So I just want to thank you both. It's been such a pleasure to hear your poems and to hear your great ideas about the Poetry Society of Virginia and things that you would find meaningful in the future. And I look forward, Angie, to your book's arrival, so that I can, pour over the poems a little bit more. And I look forward to seeing you and encouraging you to get your collection published. Well, thank you so much, everybody. And Angela Dribben, would you like to make any comments? And should we talk at all about May at this point?
Sure, we can. And all I would say is thank you. I'm so glad y'all both were here, and Aidan was kind enough to step in at the last minute and be our guest. And I'm so glad there's so many West Region members who were here and were able to become acquainted with her. So make sure you vote.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's going to be important. And you will have opportunities to do so virtually. And it should open before the festival weekend, but I haven't heard any details on exactly when it will open. I know we're submitting information for a newsletter by the 15th of this month that should come out on the 1st of May. The last one was delayed a bit. We've had a transition in terms of the position of newsletter editor, and also I think in the approach. And so that led to a little bit of delay, but I'm guessing that on the May 1st PSV statewide newsletter, that's when we'll hear the details about the voting process. And Angela, Dribben, do you think that's accurate
so.
as far as you know?
I think they're supposed to send out a Survey Monkey the weekend of the centennial. So watch your email, and if one doesn't come out, then I'll start sending emails to everyone who has any power, and I'll get a survey sent
Absolutely.
out. That's what I do.
We will make sure that you don't have to be at the festival in order to vote, but we would love to have you all at the festival. I believe you're supposed to be able to vote before you attend, though. But we'll see. We'll see. So thank you all so much. It's been a wonderful hour, and we look forward to seeing you again in May with a little bit of a reversal in the roles.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. I think we mentioned last time that Steve Booker was going to be coming on board to participate in Virginia Voices, and Angela's going to be interviewing the poetry of Bentwood Farms, the poetry of pigs and hogs and chicks. I'm just kidding. Anyway, Steve is going to interview Angela and me for the next Virginia Voices, since it's the end of the year. But Steve has agreed to continue with me. We haven't decided on an end point, but just to continue to interview Virginia Voices post May. So we hope you'll continue to attend.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. It was wonderful.